The transformation Gerald's body had become a battleground, a place where humanity and something far more advanced wrestled for control. The virus, engineered to destroy, had instead fused with his genetically enhanced DNA, creating a new entity. Gerald no longer recognized the man he once was when he looked into the mirror. His skin, once scarred and roughened by battle, now shimmered with an otherworldly glow, almost translucent, revealing the pulsing veins beneath that carried something not entirely human. The scientists at the Antarctic facility were fascinated and horrified by the changes. Gerald's cells were not just resisting the virus, they were evolving, creating new structures that melded organic and synthetic materials. His body was becoming a living weapon, capable of adapting to any threat. Dr. Larson, the lead geneticist, could hardly believe the data. Gerald's mutations were self-perpetuating with no end in sight. Every day brought a new discovery: hardened exoskeletal plates forming over his torso, neural implants emerging from his skull, and his reflexes and strength doubling in capability. But with these changes came excruciating pain. Gerald often found himself convulsing on the floor, his body rejecting and then reaccepting these new augmentations. The once familiar sensations of touch, taste, and sound became distorted, amplified to the point of unbearable intensity. He could sense electromagnetic fields, hear the hum of machinery as though it was part of his own body, and his mind was flooded with sensory input that would have driven a lesser man insane. Despite the agony, Gerald knew that he had a responsibility. The transformation, while terrifying, had given him abilities far beyond those of any human or alien. He had become the ultimate weapon in the defense of humanity. And with the galaxy still teetering on the brink of chaos, Gerald was more determined than ever to use his new powers to protect Earth and its allies. Dr. Larson warned him of the dangers. The fusion of organic and synthetic might eventually lead to the loss of his humanity entirely. Gerald might become something else, something alien. But Gerald was resolute. He had been a soldier his entire life, and if this was the price he had to pay to safeguard humanity, he was willing to pay it. The facility's alarms blared one cold Antarctic morning, breaking the monotony of tests and mutations. A new threat had emerged: the Purifiers, a radical group who saw Gerald as an abomination. They had tracked him to the Antarctic facility and were now launching an all-out assault, determined to erase what they saw as a blight on humanity. Gerald, still adapting to his newest augmentations, felt a surge of adrenaline. His body responded almost instinctively, muscles hardening into armor as he prepared for the fight. He was no longer just a man. He was something more, something that the Purifiers had no idea how to combat. As the Purifiers breached the facility's outer defenses, Gerald moved through the corridors with a speed and precision that left the soldiers in awe. Plasma bolts and bullets ricocheted off his armored skin as he tore through the enemy ranks with ease. His movements were fluid, almost mechanical, as though he were part of the facility itself, using the environment to his advantage, bending steel and shattering concrete with his bare hands. The battle was swift and brutal. The Purifiers had come expecting to face a man, but what they encountered was a force of nature, a being that defied all their expectations. Gerald dispatched the invaders with cold efficiency, leaving a trail of destruction in his wake. When the last of the Purifiers lay defeated, Gerald stood amidst the wreckage, his body shimmering with the strange energy that now powered him. The aftermath of the battle left the scientists in shock. Gerald had not just survived, he had thrived. His powers had grown even stronger, his body continuing to evolve with each new challenge. But the cost was evident. Gerald's mind was becoming more and more distant, his thoughts less human and more analytical, driven by the cold logic of survival and adaptation. Dr. Larson feared that they were losing Gerald, that the man they had known was being subsumed by something far more alien. But for Gerald, the mission had not changed. He was still dedicated to the protection of humanity, even if he no longer entirely understood what it meant to be human. The rising threat. Despite the victory over the Purifiers, the galaxy was far from safe. News reached the Antarctic facility of rising tensions across the stars. The Tarit separatists had regrouped, their remnants forming alliances with other disaffected alien races. These new coalitions were more dangerous than ever, and their hatred for humanity had only deepened. The leaders of Earth knew that they could no longer rely solely on conventional forces. The galaxy was changing, and they needed someone who could stand at the forefront of this new era of warfare. That someone was Gerald Warren. General Hawthorne, now leading the newly formed Galactic Defense Initiative, approached Gerald with a proposition. The GDI needed a leader, someone who could inspire and lead both human and alien forces in the battles to come. They needed a figurehead, a symbol of strength and resilience. But more than that, they needed someone who could think like the enemy, someone who had the power to confront the new threats emerging from the shadows. Gerald agreed, knowing that this might be his last chance to prove that his transformation, while terrifying, had a purpose. He took command of the GDI forces, overseeing the integration of advanced technologies and alien tactics into their strategies. Under his leadership, the GDI became a formidable force, capable of taking on the separatists and their allies. As the battles raged across the galaxy, Gerald found himself on the front lines once more. But this time, he was not just a soldier, he was a leader, a beacon of hope for the Allied forces. His strategies were unorthodox, often relying on his unique abilities to outmaneuver and outthink the enemy. And while some questioned his methods, the results were undeniable. Victory after victory followed, but with each one, Gerald felt a piece of his humanity slip away. The thrill of battle, the satisfaction of defeating the enemy, was being replaced by something colder, more calculated. He began to see his soldiers not as comrades, but as assets, tools to be used in the pursuit of victory. The final battle came on the planet Veron, a jungle-covered moon where the separatists had made their last stand. The terrain was treacherous, filled with hidden dangers and traps. But Gerald led the charge, his forces cutting through the enemy like a scythe through wheat. The enemy commanders, seeing their defeat as inevitable, activated a self-destruct sequence that would destroy the entire moon, taking both the GDI forces and their own with them. Gerald, now fully embracing his role as a living weapon, made the ultimate sacrifice. Using his powers, he absorbed the energy of the self-destruct, containing it within his own body and saving his troops. As the GDI forces evacuated, Gerald remained behind, standing alone on the crumbling moon as it disintegrated around him. His body, now a fusion of organic and synthetic, pulsed with the energy of the explosion. In that moment, Gerald understood that he had become something beyond human, a guardian of the galaxy, destined to fight in its darkest corners. The new Guardian Gerald's actions on Veron became legendary. The GDI hailed him as a hero, the savior of countless lives. But Gerald knew that he could never return to Earth, never live among humans again. His transformation was complete. He was no longer the man he once was. He was something new, something that the galaxy both feared and revered. General Hawthorne, now an old man, offered Gerald a final command to lead the GDI from the shadows, using his powers to protect the galaxy from threats that no one else could handle. Gerald accepted, understanding that this was his new purpose. He became the galaxy's unseen protector, a being of immense power who intervened only when absolutely necessary. His presence was felt in every corner of the galaxy, from the outer rim to the core worlds. And while the galaxy would never know his name, they would always remember the legends of the mysterious guardian who appeared in their darkest hour. Years passed, and Gerald watched as the galaxy changed, as new threats emerged and were dealt with. He watched as humanity and its allies forged a new era of peace and cooperation. But he also knew that his work was never truly done. There would always be new dangers, new enemies lurking in the shadows. The eternal vigil as the years turned into decades, Gerald Warren's legend grew, whispered among the stars like a myth that few believed but many hoped was true. To most of the galaxy, he was a ghost a shadowy figure who appeared in the midst of chaos and vanished just as quickly when peace was restored. His influence was felt but rarely seen, as he moved through the cosmos with the purpose and determination of a being who had transcended mere human limitations. The Galactic Defense Initiative, GDI, under Gerald's unseen guidance, evolved into a force capable of maintaining order across the galaxy. His strategies, once considered unorthodox, became the new standard for dealing with threats that defied conventional military tactics. The GDI's elite units, trained in the ways of both human and alien warfare, became the most feared and respected force in the galaxy, often referred to as the Guardians in homage to their mysterious leader. But even as the galaxy entered an era of relative peace, Gerald knew that his work was far from over. The forces of darkness never truly disappeared. They merely waited for the right moment to strike. And so, he continued his eternal vigil, watching over the galaxy from the shadows, always ready to intervene when the need arose. One such moment came when an ancient alien race, long thought extinct, re-emerged from the depths of space. The Zyrathians, a species with advanced psionic abilities, had been the stuff of nightmares in the old galactic legends. Their return sent shockwaves through the galaxy, as their powerful minds began to bend the will of entire star systems, turning once loyal allies into enemies overnight. The GDI, despite its strength, found itself struggling against an enemy that could not be fought with conventional weapons. The Zyrathians did not conquer through force, but through the subtle manipulation of thought and emotion, sowing discord and mistrust wherever they went. Worlds fell under their sway, not through invasion, but through the quiet, insidious whisper of doubt. It was in this desperate hour that Gerald once again made his presence known. But this time he did not arrive as a savior in battle. Instead, he appeared to the leaders of the GDI, revealing himself for the first time in years. The sight of him, still bearing the marks of his transformation, both awed and unsettled those who had only known him as a legend. "The Zyrathians cannot be defeated through strength of arms," Gerald said, his voice carrying the weight of his years in the void. "They prey on fear and doubt, using our own minds against us. To defeat them, we must become something more." Under Gerald's direction, the GDI began to implement a new strategy. Instead of fighting the Zyrathians head-on, they focused on fortifying the minds of their soldiers and citizens. Advanced training techniques, combined with cutting-edge neural technology, were developed to shield the thoughts of those who served in the GDI. Meditation practices, derived from ancient human and alien traditions, were taught to strengthen the will and clarity of thought, making it harder for the Zyrathians to find purchase in the minds of their enemies. Gerald himself took on the role of a mentor, guiding the GDI's leaders through the process of mental fortification. His own experience, having faced and overcome the darkest aspects of his transformation, gave him a unique insight into the vulnerabilities of the mind. He taught them not just to resist the Zyrathians' influence, but to turn it back on them, using their own psionic energy against them. The turning point came when Gerald led a covert operation deep into Zyrathian-controlled space. His goal was not to destroy their forces, but to confront their leaders directly. With a small team of the most mentally fortified GDI operatives, he infiltrated the Zyrathian stronghold, a massive living structure that pulsed with the collective consciousness of the alien race. Inside, the team encountered a mindscape unlike anything they had ever experienced. The walls seemed to breathe with the thoughts and emotions of the Zyrathians, a swirling maelstrom of psionic energy that threatened to overwhelm them. But Gerald, with his unique fusion of human and alien physiology, was able to navigate the chaos, leading his team to the heart of the structure where the Zyrathians' leaders resided. The final confrontation was not a battle of weapons, but of wills. Gerald and the Zyrathian overmind engaged in a mental struggle that defied the physical laws of the universe. It was a clash of consciousness, where thoughts became reality and emotions took on tangible forms. The overmind, a being of pure psionic energy, sought to consume Gerald's mind, to absorb him into its collective consciousness. But Gerald drawing on. In the end, it was not strength or power that won the day, but resolve. Gerald's unyielding determination, his refusal to surrender his identity even in the face of annihilation, shattered the Overmind's grip on the galaxy. The psionic link that bound the Xyrathians together was severed, and the alien race, once a unified force, fell into disarray. With the Xyrathians defeated, the galaxy once again found peace. But Gerald knew that it was only a matter of time before a new threat emerged. His role as the guardian of the galaxy was an eternal one, a burden that he carried willingly, knowing that his existence was necessary to protect the fragile balance of the universe. And so, Gerald Warren, the man who had become more than human, continued his journey through the stars. He was a symbol of hope and strength, a being who embodied the best of humanity and the resilience to face the unknown. He watched over the galaxy, not as a conqueror or a ruler, but as a protector, always ready to stand against the darkness that lurked in the farthest reaches of space. The final frontier centuries passed, and Gerald Warren became a myth, a legend told around campfires on distant worlds and in the halls of power on Earth. The galaxy changed, civilizations rose and fell, and the stars themselves shifted in the cosmic dance of time. But through it all, Gerald remained, a constant presence in a universe defined by change. The GDI evolved into something greater, a unifying force that spanned galaxies, bringing together species from all corners of the known universe. Under Gerald's guidance, it became not just a military force but a beacon of knowledge and cooperation, dedicated to the peaceful exploration of the final frontiers. Yet even in this new era of peace and prosperity, Gerald knew that the galaxy held secrets yet undiscovered, dangers yet to be faced. It was during an exploratory mission to the edge of the galaxy that Gerald encountered the greatest mystery of all, a rift in space-time, a tear in the very fabric of reality that led to another universe entirely. The GDI scientists had long theorized about the existence of parallel universes, but this was the first time they had found a direct gateway. Gerald, with his unique abilities and knowledge, was the natural choice to lead the expedition into this new universe. The risks were immense, the rift was unstable, and there was no guarantee that they could return once they crossed the threshold. But Gerald had never been one to shy away from the unknown. If there were threats lurking in this parallel universe, it was his duty to confront them and protect his own reality from any danger. As Gerald and his team stepped through the rift, they entered a universe that was both familiar and alien. The stars were the same, but the constellations were wrong, twisted into unfamiliar shapes. The planets they encountered were eerily similar to those in their own galaxy, but with subtle differences that spoke of a history that had taken a different path. They soon discovered that this parallel universe was not as peaceful as their own. It was a place of constant conflict, where civilizations battled endlessly for control of resources and territory. The inhabitants of this universe were locked in a struggle that had lasted millennia, with no end in sight. Gerald realized that the existence of this parallel universe posed a grave threat to his own. If the rift were to expand, it could merge the two universes, bringing the endless war of this alternate reality into their own. He knew that he had to find a way to close the rift, to seal the gateway between the two worlds, before it was too late. The journey took Gerald and his team to the heart of this war-torn universe, where they encountered beings of immense power, entities that had long ago transcended physical form and now existed as pure energy. These entities, known as the Architects, were the creators of the rift, a last-ditch effort to escape the destruction of their own universe. The Architects saw Gerald as a kindred spirit, a being who had also transcended his original form. They offered him a choice, to join them in their quest to create a new universe, one free from the flaws and conflicts that had plagued their own. But Gerald, though tempted by the idea of a new beginning, knew that his place was in his own universe. He could not abandon the galaxy he had sworn to protect, no matter how tempting the offer. In a final confrontation, Gerald used all of his powers, both human and beyond, to confront the Architects. It was a battle of wills, a struggle that spanned the fabric of space-time itself. The architects, with all their power, were no match for Gerald's resolve. In the end, he succeeded in sealing the rift, cutting off the gateway between the two universes and preventing the merger that would have destroyed them both. But the effort came at a cost. The energy required to close the rift was immense, and Gerald knew that he could not survive it. As the rift sealed, he felt his consciousness beginning to fade, his body finally succumbing to the immense strain of the transformation he had undergone so many years ago. His final thoughts were of the galaxy he had protected for so long, the stars he had watched over, and the people he had fought to save. He knew that he had done everything he could, that his sacrifices had not been in vain, and as the darkness closed in, Gerald Warren, the guardian of the galaxy, faded from existence, his mission finally complete. Epilogue: A Legacy of Hope. The galaxy mourned the loss of Gerald Warren, though few knew the full extent of his sacrifice. To most, he was a legend, a symbol of hope and resilience, a being who had protected the galaxy from the shadows for centuries. His name became synonymous with heroism, his deeds immortalized in the histories of countless civilizations. The GDI, now the Guardians of the Stars, continued his work, inspired by the example he had set. They expanded their reach, exploring new frontiers, forging new alliances, and ensuring that the galaxy remained a place of peace and cooperation. And though Gerald was gone, his legacy lived on in every star, every planet, and every person he had touched during his long vigil. In the end, Gerald Warren became more than just a man. He became a part of the galaxy itself, a guiding light that would shine for eternity, a reminder that even in the darkest of times, there is always hope, the whisper of the stars. In the eons that followed Gerald Warren's sacrifice, his memory became more than legend. It became a guiding principle that shaped the course of the galaxy. The Guardians of the Stars, the organization that had grown from the Galactic Defense Initiative, flourished under his legacy, spreading across the cosmos like a vast web of light, uniting countless civilizations in a common cause of peace, exploration, and defense. But even in this era of unity, the universe was not without its challenges. The void between galaxies, vast and mysterious, held secrets that no sentient being had yet uncovered. The Guardians knew that to safeguard their galaxy, they could not remain complacent. They had to continue pushing the boundaries of knowledge, exploring the farthest reaches of space, and preparing for the unknown threats that might arise. And so, the Guardians embarked on an unprecedented mission to map the intergalactic void and seek out other galaxies that might harbor life, knowledge, or danger. This mission, known as the Stellar Odyssey, was the most ambitious project ever undertaken by any civilization. It required the construction of ships larger than any before, capable of sustaining life and exploration for millennia, and the development of new technologies that could navigate the uncharted realms of dark matter and energy. The flagship of this fleet was named the Warren, in honor of the man who had once sacrificed everything to protect his galaxy. It was a vessel of awe-inspiring size and capability, equipped with the most advanced AI systems, self-sustaining ecosystems, and defensive measures known to the Guardians. But more than that, the Warren was a symbol of hope, a representation of the indomitable spirit that had carried Gerald Warren through countless battles and challenges. As the Warren and its accompanying fleet set out into the void, the Guardians were filled with a mix of excitement and trepidation. They knew that the journey ahead would be long and fraught with danger, but they also knew that they carried with them the legacy of Gerald Warren, a legacy of courage, resilience, and the unyielding will to face the unknown. The fleet's journey through the void was a journey of discovery, not just of the physical universe, but of the very nature of existence. They encountered phenomena that defied explanation, pockets of space where time flowed differently, regions where the laws of physics broke down, and mysterious energy signatures that hinted at the presence of other forms of life, or perhaps even other dimensions. In one such region, Known as the Veil of Shadows, the fleet encountered an anomaly that would test their resolve to the fullest. The veil was a vast expanse of space where light itself seemed to falter, as if swallowed by an unseen force. Sensors detected nothing, yet the crew of the Warren could feel a presence, a whisper in the back of their minds, as if the stars themselves were trying to communicate with them. The AI systems on the Warren began to behave erratically, processing information in ways that defied logic. Data streams became corrupted and the ship's automated systems began to malfunction. It was as if the Veil was alive, an entity that defied the Guardians' understanding of reality. The crew, led by Commander Alisara Tyr, a direct descendant of one of Gerald Warren's original comrades, found themselves facing an enemy unlike any they had ever encountered. The Veil was not a physical threat, but a psychological one, attacking their minds, their sense of reality, and their very will to continue. But Alisara, like her ancestor, was not one to back down in the face of fear. She called upon the teachings of Gerald Warren, the mental fortifications and techniques that had been passed down through generations of Guardians, to steel her crew against the Veil's influence. She led them in meditation, focusing their minds on the mission, on their purpose, and on the legacy they carried with them. In the darkest moment, when it seemed that the Veil would consume them all, Alisara made a desperate decision. She ordered the fleet to power down all non-essential systems, to reduce their presence in the Veil to the bare minimum. The crew gathered in the central chamber of the Warren, joining their minds in a collective effort to resist the Veil's influence. As they focused their thoughts, something extraordinary happened. The Veil responded, its whispers growing louder, clearer. The crew began to understand that the Veil was not an enemy, but a remnant of something ancient and powerful, a consciousness that had been trapped in the void for eons, longing for connection. Alisara, sensing this, reached out to the Veil with her mind, offering it the same resolve and determination that had guided Gerald Warren through his trials. She projected a vision of unity, of cooperation, of the shared goal of exploration and understanding. And in that moment, the Veil responded in kind. The darkness that had enveloped the fleet began to recede, revealing a hidden star system at the heart of the Veil. It was a place untouched by time, a relic of a forgotten era, with planets and structures that hinted at a civilization that had long since passed. The Veil, now understood to be the collective consciousness of that lost civilization, had been protecting this place, waiting for beings who could understand and respect its significance. The discovery of this hidden system was a turning point in the stellar odyssey. The Guardians realized that the universe was far more complex and interconnected than they had ever imagined. The Veil, once seen as a threat, became an ally, guiding them to other hidden wonders in the void and sharing knowledge that had been lost for millennia. Under Alisara's leadership, the Guardians continued their journey, now with the Veil as their companion. They explored galaxies beyond their own, encountering new species, new challenges, and new opportunities to learn and grow. Each discovery was a testament to the enduring legacy of Gerald Warren, a reminder that the spirit of exploration, of pushing beyond the known and into the unknown, was what defined them. As the centuries passed, the Guardians established new outposts and colonies in distant galaxies, creating a vast network of civilizations that shared knowledge, culture, and resources. The Warren became the center of this network, a mobile capital that brought together beings from across the universe in the pursuit of peace and understanding. And yet, even in this new era of prosperity, the memory of Gerald Warren remained ever present. His teachings, his strategies, and his philosophy of resilience and courage were taught to every new generation of Guardians. Statues of him stood in the halls of every major colony, and his name was spoken with reverence by beings who had never seen his face, but who lived by the principles he had embodied.